Hi. I'm going to try to present in 15 minutes or less my interview with King David. Actually, we had more than one session. And David is king of Israel, as you may recall, and he is looking at a career change in his life. I'm going to let him explain that himself when you meet him. Basically, the theories that I'm going to use are going to involve Crumboltz's social learning theory. Basically, I'm going to focus in on the decides process, touch a little bit about his other theory, just the social learning theory in general. And then I'm also going to dip into Adams and Hobson and talk a little bit about their theory of adult career transitions. I want to introduce you to David. Without further ado, here's Dave.
My name is King David. I'm son of Jesse, king of Israel and Judea. I've come to counseling. I'm 55 years old, and I've been king already for a quarter century. Prior to being king, my jobs have included soldiering, a cabinet position in the Israelite government, king's musician, shepherding, and basically household duties. Basically, I think my life is in a crisis. After making it to the top of my society's ladder of power and prestige, now I find my job oppressive and stagnating to the spirit. I'm tired of my kingly duties, tired of warfare, and dissatisfied with the amount of attention that I've been given to my family and friends. I have a desire to spend more time in creative and devotional pursuits, especially devotional. I want to pursue my music and my poetry, and I want to be a blessing to people.
Can you tell me, David, when you first noticed that something was wrong and that you needed to seek vocational counseling? What was it that brought you here?
I first realized that I was facing a crisis when I had my adulterous affair with Bathsheba. The prophet Nathan, he told me then that I was no longer content with the things that I had. He made me realize that I started looking around me for more. I just wasn't satisfied, if you know what I mean.
I see. So you kind of lost interest in your role as king, and you started, as you say, to look around. Can you tell me now, how are things like right now? What is your situation?
I'm bored. I began to give all my big assignments to my chief officer, Job. He seemed competent. He's won quite a few battles. And as a consequence, I've had more time on my hands of late. During this time, I began to notice how distant I had become from my family. Just look at it. It's a wreck. From my religion, too. And just my old self. The old David I used to know. I'm just not there. Not what I used to be.
So now you begin to notice that your life seems out of balance and you're ready for a change. Some of the things that you used to spend your time at in your kingly duties are no longer interesting to you or no longer meeting your needs. Sounds to me that your work environment isn't what you would want it to be, and that the tasks involved in your work as king are no longer satisfying to you. Perhaps you are ready for a career change.
I know it won't be easy, but I really want to look into it, into changing my career. After all, I'm only 50 years old. I have quite a bit of life ahead of me. And I'm still strong. I still have a very active mind, and I got ideas, and I got inspirations from the Lord. There has to be a way for me to go from here so that life will have more meaning. And I think that's what I'm called to do. And I hope you can help me.
So I think it's pretty clear to see that David is basically in an adult career transition, which brings a crisis. That's where Hobson and Adams comes in. I also want to look at it just a little bit, touch on Donald Super's lifespan theory. I believe that David is in the maintenance stage of the lifespan, and he is basically looking to transfer out of it into a more disengaged um, area, phase. And anyway, in order to do that, he's going to have to cycle down, as Super talks about, going into more to an exploratory phase where he looks out and sees what his options are and experiments a little bit, testing things out, and that's what I'm going to recommend that he do. And I want to turn now to basically more theory. So hold on, and we're going to beam the camera over to some theory. Genetic factors. Physical appearance. David's reputed to be a very handsome man. As you can tell by seeing him there, he's got that lovely mop hair, which was all the rage back then. 2, his general health is good, as he already mentioned, and special abilities, which I'll highlight now. His religious devotion, musical skills, war athletic skills, verbal skills, personal charisma, and poetic skills. Besides 3 is clarifying values, and I want to spend some time on that. Before we go into clarifying values, I have to bring up some points that David brought up in our interview. I didn't have time to put it on here. But he said, you know, leaving the kingship is just something that's never been done in the ancient world. And you leave being king usually in a box. And he doesn't want to go that route. He's got some major concerns. And not only that, he's got his family to support, very large family, and he's got enemies, as well as tons and tons of friends. A lot of confusion there, a lot of issues dealing with, you know, is he doing the right thing, and how can he go from step 1 to step 2 to step 3 and know that he's following in the right step? That's going to be a point of meditation for him and for us on our last slide here, as I bring my theological approach to this, if I have time for it. Basically, though, he's going to have to get attuned with himself, with his God, and he chose to be, which was a prophet, or we would call him probably a motivational speaker with a theological interest. Prepare for transfer of kingship, prepare family for career change, and begin training for a new career. And thus, David is on his way. Well, I really enjoyed my time with David. He's really a nice guy. I don't know if any of you will ever have royalty as clients like I have. I tell you what, this one was nice. I told him to keep in touch, and he knows he has some struggles ahead of him. If you read the scripture, you see that David's a person familiar with struggles. He's had some high points in his life, but he's had some mighty low points too. He seems to be in a kind of a low point right now, but he's rebounded and he's on his way back up, I think. I think he'll make a good prophet. He's got a lot of things going for him. Good speaker, good leader, charisma, etc., etc. Relationship with God. A person who can move other individuals. I leave you now with just a little meditation as a theological input. If you have time, you can listen to it and see what it brings to your mind. Basically, it's about finding your way and listening to a voice that speaks in many different ways, not just like a telephone call or not just like a person next to you. Sometimes you got to read the sign of the times, as Christ said in the New Testament. And I think that's what David's about right now. Thank you for listening, and enjoy the rest of the class.